Just form a fucking wall.
O'Neal deep in the post, lots of contact there. Oh, what a block by Wallace! What a jump ball!
Pistons down 4, 12-8, 7:38 to play in the first. A burst from Rodney, stuck into the rim. Count that baby and a foul. Reggie inside for Andre and a dynamite dunk.
Pistons fans, hello and welcome to another edition of the Palace of Pistons Podcast. Brendan Johnson, Aaron Johnson, and Ryan Paye back with you this week as the NBA preseason has come to a close, and we are less than a week away from Pistons basketball in the regular season opener. Well, of course, last week, Ryan and I both just with some work commitments and things like that, dealing with some of that fall, just kind of congestion and crap that comes along with the weather change. But, we're healthy for the beginning of the season. It was a preseason rest. You don't want to work the guys too hard. You don't want to get anybody hurt in a preseason podcast.
Hey, man, if Blake's going to take some time off, so am I.
So here we go. Ryan has just confirmed he is the Blake of the podcast. So anyways, boys, how we doing? Glad, we're all back together. Ryan, I know you're still on the recovery of that congestion and crud, but maybe feeling a little bit better?
Yeah, feeling a little bit better. Glad to be back this week. Excuse me if I sound congested or kind of nasally. Still dealing with it a bit, but, back, feeling good. Glad to be here with the boys for the pod. Ready for the season to start.
Yeah, thankfully, meaningful basketball is going to be back. I was able to hold down the podcast without you guys last week. And, Brennan, I'm not sure if you listened, but I actually gave you some credit because I had to host a show, and I'm not used to doing that, and I had my hiccups with it. So I did give you some credit. Not sure if you listened, but it's good to have you guys back. I had a great time with James Edwards of The Athletic and, of course, Palace of Pistons staff writer Jacob Rogers last week on the show, but excited to have you guys back this week as we get set for the regular season. It makes sense that the A-team, the starting lineup's here tonight.
Yeah, good to be back. Good to have everybody in crew. And, well, I guess we kind of have to dive into it, We could have told you this after preseason game one, but the first time the three of us have been together, to talk kind of reaction to the preseason basketball, let's just start with, maybe the obvious. Christian Wood has to make this roster, boys. I think it's plain and simple.
It would be a major indictment on the front office to stick with keeping Joe Johnson on the roster over Christian Wood. Wood has literally done everything possible to showcase that he belongs on the Pistons roster. He's rebounded. He has scored. He has played within the offense. He's played well defensively, altering shots at the rim. He has outplayed Thon Maker throughout the preseason, and he certainly has outplayed Joe Johnson. He has looked like one of the better members of the bench unit. And when you look at Detroit's bench, it's Derrick Rose and Luke Kennard, Markieff Morris, and then those last spots, Dwayne Casey said, those will be fluid spots. And Dwayne Casey showed that not only does he belong to be on the team, but he deserves to be considered for one of those other two spots, which, it could be Langston Galloway, could be Thon Maker, or it could be a guy like Christian Wood who gets in there. And I feel that Wood showed enough throughout the preseason. When you look at how he produced last year in the NBA and you look at his G League history, what he did in preseason was building upon what he did last year in the G League and in the NBA. He showed that he can score the basketball from inside and out. He's extremely athletic. He runs the floor hard. He plays hard in general. He's going to rebound the basketball for you. And the Pistons need a guy like that. He's going to fit in. He would fit in well with a second unit that's going to like to run a little bit with Derrick Rose. Those two guys in transition. Obviously, Rose's speed is going to be tough to stop, and just his finishing ability in general. But when you have an athletic monster like Wood running alongside him, helping crater in the defense, so your outside shooters, whether it's Kennard and Galloway, Markieff Morris, whoever it may be, those guys are all out there sitting open as Rose and Wood attack. And I don't know how you go through preseason and see, and Joe Johnson, 38 years old. The game's just too fast for him now. And he had a nice final game of the preseason, against the Charlotte Hornets. But
you're welcome.
Thank you. Yeah.
Yeah,
but,
you were struggling there.
I was, but he made a couple nice plays here and there, scored the ball a little bit, but still looked extremely slow doing it. And he's obviously going to be a big-time negative defensively. So I like Joe Johnson. I was excited for the potential of him still having some juice left, but he doesn't look like he really has that kind of juice. So Wood has done everything to show that he belongs on the roster. And if the Pistons waive Christian Wood before the regular season begins, that'd be, in my opinion, an indictment on the front office for not being able to move on from a guy that maybe has some intrigue and has that history like Joe Johnson for a guy that's clearly just a better player now and fills an actual need on the team.
So I believe that there is a strong and solid rapport between the front office and Dwayne Casey and his coaching staff. What the kind of team they want to put together, who they want to bring in, who they want to send out, how they want to build this roster. I don't think there's any sort of divide. I think those guys respect each other and work well together. And I think Dwayne Casey tipped his hand and put it out there and made it very clear who he wants on his roster. And that's Christian Wood. He gave him all the opportunity in this preseason, and Christian Wood did not disappoint at all. And many people are saying, after the first preseason game, people were like, yes. I mean, this is it. And then there were others, it's one preseason game. Stop it. But you could just see that he was building off his performance from the end of last year. And it was obvious that, hey, there is a competition here for these backup big minutes. And who's going to come and take them? And Christian Wood, he just stood out. Everything he did. His finishing at the rim, his defense, his hustle, everything stood out. He's someone you can go to on the offensive side of the ball. He's going to finish well around the rim. He's going to take it to the basket. He's going to attack. And he's going to run the floor, which is huge.
Right.
Like Aaron pointed out with D. Rose. A big who runs the floor, D. Rose will find him and will reward him.
Yes.
And Christian has those good hands. He's going to catch the ball. It's not going to slip through his hands. And he's going to finish at the rim. And I just don't know how you can move on from Christian Wood. I understand they like Joe Johnson. And once again, Brendan, leadership guy, locker room guy, I get it. And I'm not even mad at that. So if you want to keep Joe Johnson, that's fine. But you got to find a way to make sure that's not Christian Wood who's heading out because of it.
I've spent some time thinking about this. Spent some time while missing last week's podcast. And, Christian Wood, you look at his preseason, playing well, averaging double figures, 13.2, putting up 7 boards a game, finishing at the rim, showing he can play with D. Rose, giving you an option that, hey, if Dre gets in foul trouble or needs a night off, he could slide into potentially even start, and you could continue to utilize Thon off the bench. Number one, I know. I think you have to keep Christian Wood, but I also think you have to part with Joe Johnson because you continue to think about it. And a point I made a few weeks ago was that, hey, Langston Galloway still is going to be a trade chip at some point. I really believe it. But when you want to move a guy like Langston Galloway, you want to give something promising with it. You want to have that little extra piece that maybe you can flash in there as, hey, this is an upside guy. That guy very well could be Khyri Thomas. You don't want to trade or cut Khyri Thomas for nothing. And yes, I think there's a value of having that veteran presence in Joe in the locker room. And I think there would be some fans that just kind of rally around the whole ISO Joe if he gets himself some minutes here and there. But that mantra, that excitement for the veteran will go away very quickly when he Jose Calderones himself. And he realizes in the NBA regular season that he can't keep up when he gets put in a spot where maybe he has to play some consistent minutes. I'd much rather see Khyri Thomas go out there, show he can't do it, and prove to us that he's the odd man out, than move on from him and have a lingering thought of, well, what if? What if he got that chance? He's still too early in his career to just give up on nothing. Now, if Detroit can flip Langston Galloway for, darn near nothing and something you can waive, and you can keep ISO Joe and you want him in the locker room, that's fine. But Right now, I don't see a fit for Joe Johnson as much as I wanted to. This kind of changes my tune from a few weeks ago here on the pod. But I'll tell you, if I look at my perspective then, it's changed. I have a different point of view now.
It would almost be just as much of an indictment on the front office if they waived or traded Khyri Thomas just so they could keep Joe Johnson. You're talking about a young prospect that, rightfully so, drew some hype coming into the league. A lot of people talked about him being a steal for Detroit, getting him into the second round. Some considered him a first-round level prospect. And you're talking about a guy that when he came in and got some minutes in his rookie season, he looked the part, scoring and shooting and showing he had a little bit of a handle and could defend. He looked the part of, there's a reason this is a guy we traded assets so we could get another trade up in the draft to get him. The Pistons gave up assets to get Khyri Thomas. And for them to give up on him just 1 year into his career for a 38-year-old that has shown, unfortunately, his time has passed in the league, it would be just as large of an indictment. You cannot give up on a young guard that, even after a poor offensive performance in Summer League, because, again, it wasn't a good Summer League for Thomas, and all of us agree. He did not shoot the ball well. He did not score the ball the way that he showed he could. I mean, in the first game, he had 26 points of Summer League. And then after that, he was a non-factor. And that's a problem, but at the same time, he's a young kid. He's played one regular season of his NBA career. You're giving up on that for Joe Johnson, who is just not going to be a factor, at least a positive factor for your team on the court. That is a big-time issue at the end of the day. You cannot give up on Khyri Thomas because I still think there's a player there. So what? It didn't happen in Summer League. Guys struggle in Summer League. If Summer League was that important, then my God, Bruce Brown would probably be the starting point guard, shooting guard, and small forward for how good he played. So that's kind of my thoughts on Khyri Thomas's situation. I think it'd be really, I think it'd be a poor decision for Detroit to get rid of Khyri Thomas just so they can keep Joe Johnson. And kind of speaking about Langston Galloway, I've talked a lot about Detroit potentially needing to move him, but I think the way Svi played in Summer League, and I know this is kind of taking the topic in a little bit of a different direction, but just quickly here, because I've talked a lot about Galloway being a trade chip. It's almost like Detroit kind of needs to hold on to Galloway for a little bit, because I'm not sure Svi showed enough in the second unit that he's going to be a consistent scoring threat or has made enough strides defensively. I honestly think he played okay defensively, but the jury's still going to be out on that considering it's preseason and whatnot. And Langston's a guy that is still going to take shots and score the ball a little bit and knows the offense. Guys know how he likes to play. So I almost think you got to hold on to Langston. At the end of the day, it comes down to this. Joe Johnson is the guy that needs to be cut. As unfortunate as that is, because I think everyone would have liked to see Joe Johnson have one last ride in the NBA. It's just time has come for him.
Yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't disagree.
No, I mean,
that's weird because usually
weird.
I'm like,
I know, right?
Aaron, shut up. You're wrong. That's what he's saying. But no, I don't disagree. You're right.
It's tough. Like Aaron said, everyone wants to see Joe Johnson have that final run, that ride off into the sunset. That we all feel he kind of deserves in a way, for his career. Who doesn't love ISO Joe? I love that guy. When I was younger, we've talked about how bad I wanted him in Detroit, and I just enjoyed watching him play. And he's one of my favorite players. But it just looked like it just wasn't quite there anymore. A step, 2 steps, 3 steps slow. Guy's just more athletic than him. A lot of his game was based on his athleticism and his handle and how he could manipulate defenders. And when you take that away in your older age, it changes the game for you, and how do you adjust? And he's not like he can just, okay, I can play the 4 now, like he was saying. He's 6'6". Mm-hmm. It's 6'6", 6'7", whatever. It's interesting. So it's up, it's sad, but I agree, you can't give up on Khyri. As much as I pointed out that he might be the odd man out, and it kind of looks that way. I've said that before the preseason. I think Khyri might be the odd man out here.
And he still may be.
I mean, he didn't see the floor, which was crazy to me. I couldn't believe that. Like, that stunned me, to be honest, that Khyri just wasn't seeing the floor.
Which really makes you feel like Detroit's about to move him.
And that they don't want to injure him
Todd
because
Withers is getting in and he gets waived the next night. When these guys that aren't going to make the roster get into the game, Dante Hall. When those kind of guys get in the game before Khyri Thomas is under contract,
they don't want to get him injured because clearly something's gonna. I don't know for sure, but it
just seems that
seems
it
indicates
clear.
Indicate that.
Jordan Bone's getting minutes.
Something is on the horizon here.
Hey, how about that group in that last game versus Charlotte, giving up that massive lead and allowing Charlotte to come back and darn near force overtime?
Was it Jordan Bones, Fee?
He just kept turning.
Todd Withers,
Sekou,
and Dante Hall.
Yeah.
Disastrous.
I mean, they just kept turning the ball over. Charlotte goes down, buries a 3. Detroit throws it away. Charlotte goes down. Makes a shot.
How long has that lineup played together? Has that lineup ever been on the floor together?
I mean, probably not, but that was just like, dang, like, come on.
Well,
come
Brendan,
on,
boys. You said Sekou, so I'm going to give it a little bit of the plug here for Palace of Pistons content. Mike Filione wrote a truly outstanding season preview.
Outstanding? I thought you were the editor. You said outstanding.
An outstanding.
There you go. Come on.
Jesus.
I thought he was the editor.
Hey, an outstanding season preview on Sekou Doumbouya. Really go check it out. It's unique. It's not like a season preview you're going to read anywhere else. And I seriously, truly mean that. So go check it out again, palacefpistons.com. So we're going to find all the content, all the season previews and all that good stuff. But that Sekou one, Brendan mentioned his name. You didn't get to see a lot of him in preseason, but had to shout that out because it's such great work from Mike Filione. But a ton of great content. Nonetheless, let's keep going.
Well, yeah, give a quick attaboy to Mike. Give a quick attaboy to, our staff writers that do great stuff. Their content, I mean, it's legit, And I mean, obviously, we do the pod. Obviously, most weeks, of course, there's an instance like last week where a few of us are gone. But for the most part, it's us three holding down the pod. But Aaron, between you and then the staff of writers, I mean, you guys do a tremendous job keeping that content going on the website every day. So that piece by Mike on Sekou was good. And I mean, it's one of those things that Pistons fans are just going to have to accept that you're not going to get a lot of Sekou this year. He's just not going to be on the floor. You might see him here and there, but I don't think you're going to see him a lot. And
no, this was a reality we needed to accept quite a while ago.
Yeah.
Sure, we talked early on, like right after the draft, hey, maybe this guy can steal minutes, maybe it can happen. We learned pretty quickly that was not going to be a reality. It was going to take something major from Sekou to be getting those minutes. And it was very clear very early on. This really shouldn't be a surprise to anyone.
Sekou's such a talented player, but he's now got to learn how to play in the NBA.
Yeah, I mean, there's a difference between being 18 and playing in Europe and being 18 and playing in the NBA. There's a lot of talent there and a lot of raw ability, and I'm so excited for Sekou, as everyone should be. But now he's playing in the grown man's league. Like, this is the league of leagues. This is it. He's going to have to learn how to play here. It's going to take a little time.
And that's okay.
That's fine.
But you just have to accept it. Because, I mean, and I think for the most part, people have. Like, I don't think anyone's intention of people going, where's Sekou? But you got to remember, even if there's some struggles, even if there's some opportunities that, like, maybe Sekou could have been the guy plugged in, whether it's for rest days or injuries, he's not ready. He's not ready, and you don't want to force him into something that he's not ready for and ruin him and kill his confidence and set him back. You want to ease him in. It's very different from some guys that maybe we've had in the past where it's like you want to get him in the lineup. You want, like Luke Kennard, like, you need to have him playing against the big boys. I don't care if he starts or he's in the second unit. Meaningful minutes are going to be important for Luke Kennard this year, right? He doesn't have to start to get a lot of meaningful minutes. But that's what he needs to do this year, is play and succeed in those meaningful minutes. That's what we need out of Luke. Whereas Sekou, he just needs to get in here and there. And he needs to find his way, and he needs to develop and mature as a player.
He needs to spend a year learning how to be a professional in the NBA. He knows how to be a professional in Europe.
Yeah.
It's different. You need to learn how to be a professional here. You're 18, and you have to be an adult. Like, You need to learn how to prepare, how to carry yourself, how to act, when you should be in the film room, when you should be on the court practicing, working out. Like you said, he's been a pro. He gets it, but it's different in the NBA.
It's underestimated how tough of a transition that is.
That is a transition. Unbelievable.
18-year-olds are in like high school.
Yeah.
18-year-olds are having mom and dad make their bed, make their lunch, do everything for them. They go to school, struggle in school, go home and play Fortnite.
This man
dude's in the NBA.
Just left his home for a foreign country to play in the NBA. It's going to take a year.
Yeah.
And
anything else.
And you call him man, and I'm not saying he isn't, but I mean, he's 18. How many
18,
people would call him a kid?
I know, exactly.
A lot of people still would say he's a kid.
Exactly.
He's 18. Even though when you see him on the concourse at Ford Field, just walking around, he doesn't look 18. He looks much older, just so you know. He looks significantly older.
So he's going to have some growing pains just on, maybe it's not going to be the worst thing in the world for him because, like we keep bringing up, he's been a pro, but
yeah, he'll transition. I don't think that's the issue.
but it's just going to take some time. Plus, he's been playing basketball for what, 6 months? Jesus, man. Like, seriously, he's been playing, since he was 12, 13 or whatever?
Right.
That's when he picked up a ball. 5 years and he's in the NBA?
It's quite remarkable.
That's crazy when you really think about that.
Yeah.
That's insane. 5 years. I played basketball for 17 years, and I couldn't even sniff anything.
Yeah.
Also, I'm not 6'8", but still. Just picking a ball up after 5 years and being like, yeah, I'm good enough for the NBA.
Uh-huh.
Crazy times.
Nuts.
So, it'll take some time.
Well, I want to switch gears a little bit, just kind of talking more about preseason and some reactions and some things we've noted. And, we've bounced around talking from Christian Wood. We've talked some Saku. We've mentioned Svi. We've talked Khyri. But I think there's a big guy we need to get into, and that's Reggie Jackson. Reggie obviously secured to make the roster. This isn't about whether he's on, whether he's out. But Reggie struggled again in the preseason. And Reggie had such a good playoff series versus Milwaukee where he put up individually some really good numbers and ended that season on kind of a positive note. Like, hey, if he could play like that night in, night out, I mean, my goodness, we're not trading Reggie Jackson. Maybe we're extending Reggie Jackson. And it's one of those things you want to see it to believe it, but he left a lot to be desired in his minutes during the preseason. Do you guys take anything from that? Is that big of a deal? Will we care more next week when the lights go on and the record starts counting?
Yeah, I mean, it's preseason. You have to take everything with that certain grain of salt, but at the same time, I think there's some legitimate there's some legitimate reason to be worried. This is a guy that had a great playoff series, as you mentioned, was going into his first healthy offseason in years, so their expectations were high for him, and he's come out and he very poorly played, shooting the basketball at an abysmal percentage, 28% from the field, 27% from the three-point line. And I get there's rust and whatnot, but you got to be able to build yourself into some type of form. And Jackson just didn't do that. And that was somewhat concerning. I mean, it's not the end of the world. It's preseason. This is a guy that's been in the NBA for, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 years, whatever. So it's not like he's a bad player because of it. But it's just like, I think everyone was kind of expecting to see something more. And for him to come out and consistently struggle the way he did up until he ended up not playing in the last game of the preseason, I just think it was a little bit disappointing in that regard. And I would be lying if I said I wasn't just a little bit concerned.
And like you said, you prefaced it with, you got to take it with a grain of salt because it's the preseason, and that's how I feel as well. It's the preseason, so let's not all hit panic buttons, but I would be remiss if it didn't concern me, if I didn't say it didn't concern me. I mean, you hate to see it, honestly. He talked himself up, not about how I'm a great player this offseason, but how I finally have a healthy offseason.
He pulled the Blake card. He's like, I got a healthy offseason.
I finally have a healthy offseason to, improve, to work on my game, to figure these things out. And to come in and see the shooting struggles he has had, it's troubling, to be honest. I mean, of course, the lights can come on and that switch could just flip and, oh, shoot. Reggie Jackson had a healthy offseason. Damn. It could be, oh, shoot. but it just, he didn't, I don't know, maybe he was just, hey, going through the motions, it's preseason, who cares? But
Don't want to get hurt.
Didn't want to get hurt. I'm just gonna I'm just here just to, get my legs, get ready for the season. But man, it was a little troubling watching the struggling shooting. I don't know. It wasn't promising. I'll say that.
I will say, kind of sticking with the point guards here, Derrick Rose and Jackson both didn't play in the preseason finale against Charlotte. We got an extended look at Tim Frazier, and Ryan talked about when we ranked the Pistons in terms of value weeks back, how important Tim Frazier was. And my God, Ryan, you were so right. 15 points, 12 assists for Frazier. Looked so good running running the first unit, but it just looked so comfortable out there. And you just at least what I did. I imagined those minutes if they were played by Jose Calderon. And the difference that I saw
So you
was,
did a little self-torture, eh?
Yeah. I mean,
are you okay?
You put yourself
Aaron,
through it.
do we need to talk after the pod? Like, are you okay?
but
Tell me now.
Frazier really looks like a good player, and we knew that. We knew Frazier was solid. He's just always been that third string point guard, that guy that's going to come in and he'll still find a way to produce, and that's going to be really important this year. And it's going to be one of those things where it's like Jose Calderon played 2,000 minutes last year. If you don't have Jose Calderon playing 2,000 minutes and you have someone of Tim Frazier's talent playing those 2,000 minutes, there's no question the Pistons will be a better team this year, just off that alone.
I mean, we broke it down in the past on past pods about it. Derrick Rose is not playing 82 games. He's not. Reggie Jackson, I understand, played 82 last year, but what are the chances he does that again?
I would say slim.
Considering his history. Hey, maybe he's good and he does it, but there's going to be opportunity there, and someone's going to have to step up.
The thing is,
and it's going to be Tim Frazier.
And with the trend of the NBA and the way depth works, well, let me put it this way. The way that you have depth, and when you have it, and you use it, like, it's shown it can work to your advantage, put it in that perspective. It would be really silly not to give Reggie a couple nights off and give Blake his rest, give Dre some rest. Like, of course you need to be in a position where you're winning games and you can afford to do that. But as long as you stay competitive and in the hunt, you might need to find a way here and there. Hey, take an extra day. Turn these 2 days off into 3 days off. Really rest your body. And that way, I mean, just for treatment, just for, hey, you're sore. Let's not push it. Let's not push it. Let's take a day.
And maybe Tim Frazier doesn't play the 2,000 minutes that Calderon played last year.
Let's say he plays 1,000.
But those minutes Calderon was on the court were a negative for the Pistons. It was literally the reason they lost games. I don't expect it won't be that way with Tim Frazier. I think Tim Frazier's going to put up a positive rating this year when he's in the game. It's going to change this team. Mm-hmm. Even though we may not see him, consistently, and he may not always be in every game, it's going to be a net positive for this team. It's going to help this team for the better.
It's also one of those things where Dwayne Casey talks about fluid spots off the bench. Well, you might need to put Tim Frazier in that conversation. He's a guy you can plug in. Yes, he's short. He should probably be your one just with his ball handling ability. So you're able to slide a guy like Derrick Rose to the 2, which he started to play more in his career. He's still going to play a lot of point guard, but he has that ability to play shooting guard. And Frazier's a guy that maybe Rose isn't the greatest outside shooter, but Frazier is a reliable outside threat. It's a very good assist-to-turnover ratio player. Does not turn the ball over and is a very efficient passer. He just makes the right plays. And if Langston's in a cold streak, a cold month, which happened half of the season last year, you have a guy like Frazier that can come in and can play alongside Rose, and that second unit can make it work if need be. Frazier just is a guy that I really think this year you're going to see because he just makes the right plays. And those players, even if their ceiling isn't high or super high, it still has incredible value.
And to your point, you bring it up, and it's a good point. And, we've been hitting on, hey, what if Reggie Jackson doesn't play? Or what if Derrick Rose doesn't play? Or what if them get injured? But even move it a step further. What if Bruce Brown gets a couple nights off for rest? What if Luke Kennard gets a couple nights off for rest? Or what if one of them, God forbid, we don't want, does take an injury and has to miss for a week or two? You can slide.
Right.
Let's say Bruce misses some time.
Let's say Tony Snell gets hurt.
You can slide Luke into the starting lineup, and you move Derrick Rose over the 2, and Tim Frazier is your 1 in your backup and your 2 in your second lineup. Like, there's gonna be more opportunity for Tim Frazier this year than just, hey, Reggie's taking the night off, or hey, Derek's taking the night off. There's chances are this might be an injury or two.
Sure.
I'm not saying major, but
there's going to be like
Snell gets his nights off or whatever. Luke, Bruce, it's going to happen. We're going to see Tim Frazier more than I think we realize.
Tim Frazier's a lot like Christian Wood in the sense that when he gets on the floor, he produces, but for some reason hasn't been able to stick. And while Frazier's stuck in the NBA, he hasn't been able to stick in a position where he's consistently getting minutes night in and night out in a quality role.
Well, he's been in some pretty tough situations, though. I mean, he's been behind some good guards. He's never been in a spot where, hey, Tim Frazier's the solidified point guard on the roster, the backup.
Last year played in the Milwaukee Bucks, and you have Eric Bledsoe, George Hill, and Malcolm Brogdon. They're all ones.
Yeah, he's the number 4 point guard in their rotation on their roster.
Played with Portland, played with New Orleans, Drew Holiday. He's not been in the best positions, but he's come out and shown that he's a player and he can have a positive impact on this team, and he will,
which is good. So the Pistons have 5 games in October. It starts Wednesday the 23rd at Indiana. They come home to Detroit on the 24th to play the Hawks. They stay at home to host the 76ers on Saturday the 26th. On Monday the 28th, they play at home versus the Pacers. Then they travel north and play in Toronto to round out their October schedule. 3 games at home, 2 on the road. 2 matchups with the Pacers and 1 with the defending champs. Obviously, very different look, though, with Kawhi gone, among some others.
Mm-hmm.
Those 5 games. What's the Pistons' record November 1?
3-2. 3-2. I think that...
And November 1 before 8 o'clock when they play Chicago, of course.
I'll go with 3-2 because I think that they'll certainly lose to Philadelphia. And then I think that they will win 3 of the other 4. Whether they beat Indiana twice and the Hawks, or they beat Toronto, split with Indiana, beat the Hawks, or beat Indiana both times, lose the Hawks, and beat Toronto. I think they'll win 3 of those games. In reality, if I'm picking, I think they beat Indiana twice and Atlanta. You have to beat Indiana right now. That's a team that really has to build chemistry on the fly. Doesn't have Victor Oladipo. Those are prime opportunities at the beginning of the season when the Pistons, who are set to be at full health, need to be able to capitalize. You're playing a team without their best player. You're playing against a team that has a lot of new guys on the roster, and they're trying to build chemistry. You have to be able to capitalize on that. So I'm certainly looking for Detroit to pick up wins in those 2 games. And then Atlanta, Atlanta's one of those teams that some people are picking to be playoff contenders, so sneaky playoff contenders out of the East. They had an interesting offseason. Of course, they still have Trae Young, who they're expecting big growth from. But if the Pistons are a playoff team, if the Pistons are a good team like we say they are, they got to be able to beat a team like the Hawks. And then it's up to them to compete with Toronto or compete with Philadelphia, which, Philadelphia is going to be one of the best teams in the East, and Detroit struggled with them mightily last year. So I don't assume it'll be different this year, especially considering the roster changes that Philly's made, bringing in Al Horford, bringing in Josh Richardson. So
they're going to be so tough to match up with.
Impossible.
Their
length, their defensive ability, it's going to be, especially for a team like Detroit, who's based off their smaller guards, Reggie Jackson, Derrick Rose, Luke Kennard. Those guys are going to have a tough time matching up defensively against those 6'8", 6'7" guys.
Yeah, I mean, you're not far off. 3-2, I think, is a fair prediction. If they're under 500 through the first 5 games, that's a bit of a red flag to me, even though I've always said it's a 10-game buffer in the regular season. Teams need to find themselves, and you find that flow, and then after, 10 games after, that's when you really know. But, no, if they're under 500 after the first 5 games, that, for me, would be a bit of like, uh-oh, what's going on here? Because you have a prime opportunity in Indiana, like you laid out. It's a team that has to build their chemistry on the fly. No Victor Oladipo. That you have to take advantage. Like, you have to. If this is a playoff team, better than an 8th seed playoff team, you have to figure that out. Yes, Atlanta's some sneaky possible playoff team. No. There's too much experience now on this roster. Go bury them. It's going to be a fun game. Atlanta's going to be good. Beat them.
Atlanta. So here's the thing with Atlanta. It's on a back-to-back, but Detroit's also the home team against Atlanta. So There should be that little bit of extra energy, home opening night. And again, if you're a good team like you say you are, your goal is to host a playoff series. You have to go out and win that game.
You win that game. That's my personal opinion. That's my belief. So I think 3-2 is a fair benchmark. I mean, if they're above that, awesome. Below that, that's a little concerning to me.
I actually have a feeling they're going to go 4-1, but the game that they lose is going to be at home to Indiana, because I could see Detroit going out making a statement night 1 in Indiana while they're figuring some things out, coming home, and it would be very surprising to me to see them lose at home versus Atlanta. Saturday the 26th, those boys will be ready to play. Like, that place will be loud. I just have a really good feeling about the Philadelphia game. But there will be a hangover, and that will be the home game versus Indiana. And I feel like that is, if they beat Philadelphia, or if they lose to Philadelphia, if it's a competitive game, that Indiana home game scares me. Because there's just some hangover of all that excitement, energy going into that Saturday home game versus Philly. I also think Detroit will go up to Toronto and take care of business. Dwayne Casey obviously has done well in Detroit versus Toronto.
Absolutely.
He's done okay. And I think Toronto's going to take a little bit of time figuring themselves out too. They've got some pieces. Toronto's going to be a good basketball team this year. Don't get me wrong. But they're going to have to figure themselves out.
I mean, you don't just lose Kawhi Leonard and be like, yeah, we're fine.
You don't adjust to having a guy like Kawhi that can just make those kind of plays and change your game completely, and then all of a sudden flip the switch and be like, oh, yeah, we got to figure it out. I think Detroit can go up there. It's a prime opportunity for them to take one on the road. And before they head to Chicago to start their November slate, I feel like it's a very winnable game. So 3-2 is the, I think, fair, reasonable answer. I think 4-1's optimistic, but I like it. I don't know if 5-0 is realistic, because either you're going to put a lot of energy into beating Philadelphia, or the reality of beating Philadelphia is going to come out and it's going to be tough. So
Blake 50 burger against Philly again.
Maybe let's see it.
Maybe a 60 burger. You never know.
Wow.
I'm just putting it out there. We know. Yes, we know. We know how Blake Griffin performed when I would call him out on this podcast.
Okay. So there you have it. 60 burger.
So we're calling big numbers already. We're just getting that train started now.
Oh man. That's why it's good the NBA season's here.
Yeah, we need it. We need it.
Yeah, we do.
What? Yes. Blake 50, 15, and 8? Okay.
Oh, okay. Book it.
Just book it.
Book it right now. You heard it here first. Boys, when we talk next week, the Pistons will have a record on their official record for the 2019-2020 season. Any final words before moving into the Pistons' regular season? Finally, the time is here. I think through the dog days of August and September, where we're reaching. We're pulling for anything. I mean, what was the headline story? Was Michael Beasley a 20-minute segment this offseason? Oh, yeah, it was. Okay.
And what was Michael Beasley, a Piston for 20 minutes?
Yeah, seriously. Oh, gotcha. Okay, we talked about him longer than his tenure. Okay, great. But it's here. The time has come. Any final words before we transition into the regular season?
Buckle up, man. It's going to be a ride. It's going to be a ride. The Pistons will be a ride. Palace of Pistons will be a ride with the different kind of content we're going to bring you. It's going to be a lot of fun. There'll be some highs. There'll be some lows. But Pistons basketball is back. And it's good that the NBA is back because life has true meaning once more.
We made it, fellas. It was long. It was a struggle at times. But we made it. We're here now. It's about to get real. And I'm excited. And I know all of you out there are excited. I know you fellas right here are excited. So let's get it going.
Time to get to work, boys. Time for Pistons basketball. And time for you to do just a couple of quick things. Obviously, with the season starting, if you haven't liked and rated, maybe thrown out a review, subscribed is the big thing, though, to the podcast. Well, you need to change that now. You aren't going to want to miss these weekly pods throughout the season. Another thing, we're on YouTube. You think we're going to have great YouTube content throughout the season? Well, you're absolutely right. You want to make sure you subscribe to that page. You don't want to miss those videos. You don't want to miss our breakdowns. You don't want to miss Aaron's little videos before and after games, losing his mind when Detroit drops 2-3 in a row, absolutely going bananas when they pick up a home win, versus whoever the bottom team in the league is. I mean, come on. You don't want to miss this stuff. So make sure you find us on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe to the pod. Also, obviously, on Twitter at Palace of Pistons, Instagram at Palace Pistons. Check out the Facebook page. Circling back to Twitter, you can follow Aaron at A Johnson NBA, Ryan at Ryan Paye, myself at Media Brendan. Throw us a follow. Engage with us. We want to hear your thoughts. The boy said it. Buckle up. It's time to go. We're here now. We'll see you next week talking about Pistons basketball and the regular season underway here on the Palace of Pistons Podcast.